this could happen, but if I do go, this could happen. So now that it's done, I mean, don't got to worry about it too much anymore. Just taking into consideration the pros and cons for both sides of the situation and, of the decision. And, I got to seek guidance from my family. We prayed a lot about it, and this is a decision that I'm going to have to live with, and so I made it, and, I mean, I'm good with it. A lot of the guys, the general managers, the owners that I've got to talk to kind of said the same thing. They kind of look at this injury as like a knee injury almost, although it's not. In a way that, okay, are we going to take a chance on this guy, or would he be able to, possibly do a pro day before the draft and whatnot? And really the biggest thing they want to do is just see that we can, move and we can just be back to how we were playing prior to the injury.
All right, so from where we bring in our Paul Feinbaum. So, Paul, you're on standby. I think you had been waiting for this decision. What is your reaction to Tua saying he will enter the NFL draft?
He's making the right decision, Kerry. It was too big of a risk to come back, especially the fact that he has been injured so many times. Now, the word was last week that Tua wanted to come back. Now, he'll have more to say about that in a minute, but I think he was caught up in the last game and the emotion and being with his teammates. But a week ago, if you asked an Alabama official, was he coming back or not, they would have told you yes. Even as late as Friday night, Alabama officials were saying they believed he was coming back. But the trip to New York, talking to physicians about his future, I think he reversed fields, and really nobody should be very surprised because of the risk involved, I think, in staying versus going, where he will definitely be a first-round pick.
Wow, as late as Friday night. Well, I'm sure some may be surprised this morning. And so with that in context for me, please, Tua's decision, how does that impact the balance of power in the SEC for the next season?
Well, it's interesting. It's already changed. A week from tonight, LSU, in the same division as Alabama, will be playing for the national championship, and they're favored in the game. So I think when we convene again next summer and start speculating, it's going to be LSU and Alabama and probably Georgia. But we don't know the final resolution. But Kerry, they're losing a lot of talent from this team. Several have already announced. So Nick Saban will have a new quarterback. It probably won't be Tua's brother. It could very well be Mac Jones, who took over, or a young man from California who's considered the #1 prospect in the country.
All right. Thank you so much, Paul Feinbaum, for joining us here on SportsCenter Coast to Coast with the latest. And obviously your reaction to Tua's decision to enter the draft. Our Laura Rutledge is actually sitting down with Tua right now. Tua was officially let go yesterday. McCarthy won a Super Bowl with the Packers about a decade ago, but was fired by the team 12 games into the 2018 season. The Cowboys reportedly only interviewed McCarthy and Marvin Lewis for the opening. So for more, we welcome in our senior NFL insider, Chris Mortensen. What more can you tell us about how this hiring all came about?
Well, Jason Garrett's contract was expiring, and they clearly were moving on, as Ed Werder had reported last week. And so when they started the interview process, they met with Marvin Lewis, the former Bengals coach, and then Mike McCarthy, who eventually was hired, former Packers coach. And one of the interesting parts of this process was that Jerry Jones had data that told him college coaches jump into the NFL do not generally work out. So all the speculation about Lincoln Riley and all the coaches involved in that, Dan Mullen at Florida and Matt Rhule at Baylor, that was eliminated. Focus on head coach with extensive experience, a track record, does not have to win the press conference, but in this case, Marvin Lewis's record is a lot better than people think. He did go to 7 playoff games. I know he was 0-7, but McCarthy was the second guy in. They had an excellent interview, and at the end of the weekend, Jerry Jones, and it was Jerry Jones' decision, even though his son Steven helped him certainly through this process, Jerry Jones decided that there was not going to ever be a perfect hire, but he's got one who's won a Super Bowl and who's won 10 playoff games in Mike McCarthy.
Okay, so what are you hearing about this dynamic? Because you said it was Jerry Jones's decision. What are you hearing about how that work dynamic will go on between Jerry Jones and Mike McCarthy?
Well, it won't be anything different. I don't anticipate anything different unless Jerry all of a sudden makes a decision he's not going to talk to the media, and I can't see that. That would be the only change. He talked a little less to the media when Bill Parcells was there, but Bill Parcells is a Hall of Fame type coach, and Mike's had a lot of success. But listen, one thing about Jerry Jones I think is a little bit of a misperception about him is he's a very good listener. Example, when the year Johnny Manziel came out, he wanted to take him. But his son, Stephen Jones, told him, no, we got to stick to the plan, our scouting plan. They got an excellent personnel guy, Will McClay. They took Zach Martin to the Cowboys. That was the right decision. So Jerry Jones does more listening than I think maybe the perception of him is. And otherwise, this is the same. Jerry Jones is the owner. He's the general manager. That's going to remain the same. And Mike McCarthy's job is to coach the team and put together, hopefully, a pretty good staff that can get that defense to play a lot better.
All right, Chris Mortensen, thank you so much for that perspective. David, I'll send it back over to you.
Okay, Carrie, I got Tim Hasselbeck and Ryan Clark here with us to talk about all of this. I guess there's a perception that, okay, this guy has coached for many years, sort of a retread. It's not exciting. It's not fresh, blah, blah. What do you think of the move, RC?
Well, I think that's the thing you don't want to do if you're Dallas, right? You don't want to just make a move because it's exciting. You don't want to try to get the newest, young, hot coaching name. You want to get the coach that you feel fits what you want to do. And that's what Jerry Jones did. He went out, he got experience. He has someone who has won and who has been around winners, who has been around very good quarterback play. And for Jerry Jones, that was important. I also think it was important that he found someone who understood the business of NFL football, because, you know, playing under Jerry Jones could be different. Now, this would be his first time working under an owner, period, not necessarily an owner like Jerry Jones, but I believe Mike McCarthy has that type of maturity, experience, and wisdom, which is what Jerry Jones wanted.
I think he has the maturity, experience, wisdom. I think you're right about that. He's really organized and detailed, and I think that that's important. It's an important quality to have as a head coach, and I think that's why Mike McCarthy has been a good head coach, and I think will continue to be a good head coach. Listen, before he was a head coach, he kind of had this famed quarterback school that a lot of good quarterbacks went through. A lot of quarterbacks would say that it helped them improve. So I think it's a good match for Dak Prescott. I think some of the things in kind of his background in offense, being in the West Coast offense, is a good fit for Dak. I think Mike has probably learned a lot about, you know, the difference in the game and some of the things you can do to kind of make it 11-on-11 football with the quarterback running, and I think that that'll be part of what they do. And so he wanted another opportunity. I think he kind of deserved it. Yeah. I've heard people say, well, he only won one Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, Sean Payton's won one with Drew Brees. Yeah. You know, Pete Carroll's won one with Russell Wilson.
People don't understand just how hard it is to win a Super Bowl, to get to one.
You know,
and I think we try to find reasons to knock other guys down, but when you look at what Mike McCarthy has done and you look at his resume, this guy's a good football coach, and that's what the Dallas Cowboys needed, was a good football coach.
Okay, game changer over Jason Garrett. Jason Garrett is considered a good football coach. It didn't seem, for a lot of people, didn't move the needle enough that it changes things in Dallas.
I would say this. I think, listen, Jason Garrett knows a lot of football, too. I think sometimes just the change is helpful. Yep. You know, I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean like, oh, hey, he's so much better at this or so much better at that. Look, I think the change, I think a changing of a culture, I think that Mike is probably going to be a little bit harder on guys. You know, I mean, I think that would, you know, be my sense.
And will he be able to with Jerry Jones?
I don't think Jerry Jones wants to run a country club. I think Jerry Jones, listen, does he talk all the time? Sure. There are good players on that team. Jerry Jones, the general manager, has built a roster full of really good players.
And I think the other thing, you look at moving the needle or getting a coach that does something or takes this team to a different place over Jason Garrett, is that guessing on a coach or a coordinator or finding someone you feel like can take the roster that you have and allow them to play freely, allow them to understand and have the discipline and direction they need to win. And also, when you look at Matt LaFleur replacing Mike McCarthy in Green Bay, their offense hasn't gotten better. Aaron Rodgers hasn't gotten better. You know what they did? They went out and got, and they made sure Aaron Jones got the football. They added defensive players like Zadarius Smith and Preston Smith. And so it's not necessarily that getting someone new guarantees you move forward if you don't change other things. And I think Mike McCarthy would understand what are those things that need to be changed and where they need to go as a team.
He's done intensive work since being fired. It's amazing. He's gotten guys together, and they break down film, and he's been preparing for this moment basically from the get-go since he was released week 12 of 20.
This could happen, but if I do go, this could happen. So now that it's done, I mean, don't got to worry about it too much anymore. Just taking into consideration the pros and cons for both sides of the situation and, you know, of the decision. And, you know, I got to see guidance from my family. We prayed a lot about it, you know, and this is a decision that I'm going to have to live with, you know, and so I made it, and I mean, I'm good with it. A lot of the guys, you know, the general managers, the owners that I've